군단들이 상성되었습니다.
Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of two similar champions and comparison featured by League of Legends versus the Mobile Legends Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so you will be notified to our new next episode video. Let's do this! Kyan and the others like him were raised to be child soldiers, a cruel practice employed only by the most devious commanders of the Empire. Ionian compassion was a weakness to be exploited. Their warriors would hesitate before striking down a supposed innocent. Even though he was barely able to lift the blade he had been given, Kyan's first day in the battle was also expected to be his last. The Noxian forces landed in the mouth of the Ipul River. Kyan and the others hesitated, facing disorganized bands of locals defending their homes from these returning invaders. While his young comrades were cut down or fled the battlefield, Kyan showed no fear. He dropped his heavy sword and snatched up a fallen sickle, turning to face the shocked Ionians as the Noxian regulars swept in from the flank. The carnage was staggering. Farmers, hunters, and even a handful of Vastaya all were butchered without ceremony. 2 days later, after word had spread through the southern territories, the Order of Shadow came upon the horrific scene. Their leader Zed knew this area had no tactical significance. This massacre was intended to be a message. Noxus would show no mercy. A flickering glint of steel caught his eye. A child not older than 10 was laying in the mud, leveling his broken sickle at the master assassin, bloody knuckles straining white. The boy's eyes showed pain unbearable at his age, yet still burned with the fury of a hardened warrior. His tenacity was something that could not be taught. Zed saw in this child, this abandoned Noxian survivor, a weapon that could be turned against those who had sent him here to die. The assassin held out his hand and welcomed Kyan into the Order of the Shadow. Acolytes traditionally spent years training with a single weapon of their choosing, but Kyan mastered them all. To him, they were mere tools, and he was the weapon. Armor he viewed as a burden, instead cloaking himself in shadows and slaying enemies with quickness and stealth. These swift executions instilled fear in the hearts of those fortunate enough to be spared. And as Kyan's legend grew, so did his arrogance. He truly believed that one day his power would eclipse even that of Zed himself. This hubris led Kyan to embrace his final test, to seek out a darkened weapon recently unearthed in Noxus, and prevent it being used against the wary defenders of Ionia. He accepted without hesitation, never questioning why he had been chosen for the task. Indeed, where any other acolyte would have destroyed the living site known as Rust, Kyan took it for himself. The corruption took hold the moment his fingers closed around the weapon, locking them both in a fatal struggle. Rust had long awaited the perfect host in order to join its darkened brethren and lay waste to the world. But Kyan will not be easily dominated. He returns to Ionia in triumph, convinced that Zed will name him the new leader of the Order of the Shadow. The following story expands how exactly Kyan got hold of Rust. Kyan stood confidently in the shadow of the Noxtra, surrounded by dead soldiers, and smiled at the irony. These triumphal arches of dark stone were raised to honor the strength of Noxus, to instill fear in all who passed beneath them. Now, this one was a tombstone, a monument to false strength and arrogance, and the symbol of the fallen warrior's own fear turned against them. Kyan relished fear. He counted on it. It was a weapon, and as his brothers in the Order of the Shadow had mastered their katana or their shuriken, Kyan had mastered fear. But as he felt Noxian soil beneath him for the first time in years, Amid the enemy soldiers slain and soon to be forgotten, there was an unease. It hung in the air like a pressure before a storm, begging to be released. Nakuri, Kane's fellow acolyte of the Order, reversed the grip on his blade and prepared for a more personal fight. To his credit, he almost managed to hide the tremor in his voice. "What's it going to be, brother?" Kane said nothing. His hands rested empty at his sides. He knew he was in control. Even so, he felt a flickering sense of déjà vu, like something out of a dream. It came in a flash and then was gone. A voice rose from the empty space between them. A dark and hateful voice that echoed with the faint cries of 1,000 battlefields, daring each of them to act.
Who will prove worthy?
Zed had summoned his greatest student. Spies of the Order had confirmed the rumors. The hated Noxians had discovered an ancient site of dark in origin, as powerful as any magic in Ionia. A single eye of crimson haze stared out from the heel of the blade, tempting the strongest of men to wield it in battle. Evidently none had proven to be worthy. All who touched it were quickly and painfully consumed by its malevolence. So it had been wrapped by chainmail and sackcloth and secured by a guarded caravan bound for the immortal bastion. Shida Kane knew what would be asked of him. This would be his final test. He had reached the outskirts of the coastal city of Vindor before he ever considered the journey's significance. Taking the fight to the enemy in their own land was audacious, but so was Kane. There was no other who could match his talents, none to whom Zed would entrust the fate of Ionia, and so there could be no doubt. Kane was destined for greatness. He set his trap shortly before sunset. The approaching caravan was just visible in the distance, as dust raced into the orange sky. More than enough time to dispatch the 3 guardians of the Noxtra. He moved in silence across the archway's shadow as the first guard faced out for a patrol. Kane summoned his shadow magic and stepped into the black stone wall as if there was a passage open only to him. He could see the guards in silhouette, grasping their pikes tightly with both hands. He lunged from the wall, cloaked in shadow, and snuffed the life from the second guard with his bare hands. Before the third could even react, Kane dissolved into tendrils of pure darkness and darted across the cobbled road, reforming in front of his victim. In a flash, he wrenched the man's head around, snapping his neck with ease. The first guard heard the bodies fall, lifeless with limp, and turned toward Kane. The assassin smiled, taking time to relish the moment.
It paralyzes, does it not?
He hissed, slipping into the shade of the Noxtra once more.
The fear.
He arose from the quaking soldier's own shadow.
This is the part where you run, Noxian. Tell others what you witnessed here.
The soldier threw down his pike and sprinted away. He didn't get far. Clad in robes as dark as Kane, Nakuri leapt from behind the Noxtra and plunged his katana into the belly of the fleeing soldier. The other acolyte locked eyes with Kane. The vaunted strength of Noxus. Such an illusion.
I knew you were impetuous, brother.
Kane spat.
But this, following me all this way, hoping to share in my glory.
There was no time for further conversation. They could hear the caravan of soldiers approaching.
Get out of sight, Nakuri! I will deal with you later, if you survive.
The long shadows of twilight hid the bodies until the approaching soldiers were almost beneath the grand arc. Hold! The first outrider cried, drawing his sword. Fan out, now! Confusion set in among the others as they left their horses, and for the first time, Kane laid eyes on their cargo. It was just as Zed had described, wrapped in chainmail and sackcloth, and strapped to the back of a sturdy Vindoran steed. Patience was a virtue that Nakuri did not possess, and he heedlessly dove for the nearest soldier. Kane always selected his targets carefully, and so struck with precision at the lead outrider, felling him with his own sword. He turned again to the Vindoran, but the scythe was gone. He had come too far to fail. Kane! Nakuri yelled as he cut down one soldier after another. Behind you! A desperate Noxian had freed the weapon. its red eye now revealed and glowing with inhuman rage. The soldier's own eyes grew wide as he swung it viciously in arc at his own comrades. He was clearly not in control, trying in vain to release the sight. The rumors were true. Calling again on his shadow magic, Kyan dove into the breathing Noxian's dark and corrupted flesh. For the briefest of moments, he saw through the eye of this ageless being, witnessing millennia of inflicted pain and suffering, screams and lamentations. This thing was death reborn again and again. It was the purest evil and it had to be stopped. He burst from what was left of the Noxian, the soldier's flesh having warped into scales of hardened stone that shattered into black shards and choking dust. All that remained was the sight, its eye now closed. Kyan reached for it as Nakuri dispatched the last of their enemies. "Brother, stop!" the acolyte cried, flicking blood from his katana. "What are you doing? You saw what it can do. It must be destroyed." Kyan faced him.
No. It is mine.
The two of them drew up, neither willing to back down. Beyond the city boundaries, warning bells began to toll. The moment seemed to stretch out. Nakuri reversed the grip on his blade. "What's it going to be, brother?" The sight spoke to Kyan then. It seemed as if it was echoing in his mind, and yet the other acolyte's widening eyes showed that he had heard the view.
Who will prove worthy?
Kyan conjured fingers of darkness that snatched up the weapon, lifting it into the night, spinning it into his waiting hands. It felt like a part of him, like it had always been part of him, as if he alone was born to wield it. He spun it with a comfortable flourish and leveled the blade toward Nakuri's throat.
Do what you must.
And that was the story of Kyan. I noticed that some people bashed this story on the internet, and I really wanted to address it because they bashed it for the wrong reasons. Kyan is a character that is meant to be seemingly cool, arrogant, and edgy. League of Legends didn't have a character with these attributes before, so with Kyan, Riot filled these characteristics whole. If you feel like Kyan is too edgy and too much inspired by anime, that is because he was meant to be. It was even confirmed that Sasuke was one of the inspirations for him. As far as Rast goes, there will be some stories in the future explaining him and the other Darkin as well. A little bird told me that the Darkin history may arrive later this year. So don't worry, this is not all the lore we get. Also, if you look at Kyan's related champions, you can notice Aatrox and Zed, both of which could get a story update soon, but you can also notice Darius. So Kyan may be a segue to the story of Noxus, since Urgot is on his way too. But that's all I got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to rate it and subscribe for more stories in the future. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for being here and for your support. You know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you, come again.